and the renewables. So the last percentage is the renewables. So that renewable is, if you see, Australia around 8.6%, and Brazil, if you see, 45%, and Canada 28%, and so on. But if we see the India is around 7 to 8%, 7.8, or you can say roughly 8%. So this is the little latest data. So that means we have to increase the renewable mix, and in fact, a lot of thrust is there, so that we can increase the renewable mix. Now, right now, what we are doing, we are using the fossil fuels. The repercussions we know. The repercussion is the increase in the CO2 emission. Okay, not only that, not for the vehicle, and for other activities also, in order to generate the electricity that we are using, we have to be dependent on the coal based, primarily the coal based power plant, which emit lot of CO2. So this all indicate that the CO2 has to be captured, or it has to be sequestered. So just one technology, which is the CO2 capture and sequestration, I'll discuss. So if you talk about the CCS, which is the carbon dioxide capture and sequestration, so it primarily consists of the three terms. It is the capture, also the transportation in order to store it. Okay, so typically if I give you some data, that a pulverized coal based power plant, you can get around 30.2% CO2 in the flue gas. This is a typical data. Okay, so 13 to 15% it can vary. So the present technologies are there in the capture domain. It is a post combustion, pre combustion, and the oxy fuel firing. So if you see post combustion, as the name is indicating, you are going for the combustion. Then after that you are capturing the carbon dioxide. So if this is a coal based power plant, the fossil fuel and air you are utilizing for burning of the fossil fuel. So you are using the air, and because air is having lot of nitrogen, which is around 79%. So that increases, or that dilutes the CO2 in the stream. But anyway, we have to capture it. So we capture it, and then this carbon dioxide is ready for some purpose. It may be for storage or for some other purpose. Okay. Then similarly, the pre-combustion. So pre-combustion says that before combustion, you concentrate, or you use in such a way that the concentration of CO2 is very high. So what we do, the fossil fuel is there, we go for the steam reforming. Once the steam reforming is there, suppose it is a hydrocarbon, what we get the hydrogen and the CO2. If the CO2 is there, that CO2 we can scrub and we can generate. Okay, and this hydrogen can be used for the power generation. Similarly, the oxy fuel firing. In oxy fuel firing, what we do, we separate the nitrogen from the air. So this is the air separation unit. We take out the nitrogen, we send the almost pure or very high concentration of oxygen into the power plant, so that once we get the carbon dioxide, it is not diluted with the nitrogen. Otherwise, if it is diluted with the nitrogen, then the separation process is little tricky and more cumbersome. Now, once the CO2 is available, we have to transport it. Once we have to transport, then we have to store it, and storage is primarily in the geological sites, and with that expectation that maybe in thousands of years we can get the hydrocarbon, but 1,000 years is a long time. Okay, very huge duration. So that may not be feasible, and at the same time we don't know what are the after effects once we store this CO2. At the same time, the storing of the CO2 in these geological sites require a lot of energy. So again, that's an issue. Therefore, people are trying to convert this carbon dioxide into various products. For example, if you have the carbon dioxide, there are various technologies like chemical reduction, bimetal, thermochemical, photochemical, and so on, and also the electrochemical route. Okay, so what we can do, we can make the methane we can make the methanol, or from methanol we can go for the dimethyl ether, or the syngas we can make from the CO2 to CO plus H2, so that we can get that get the syngas. Once the syngas is there, then this is the basically building block for all the other chemicals, and we can make the or the synthesize the other chemical. For example, if you see methanol and DME are being considered for transportation fuel in India, and if I just tell you about Brazil, so they are using M15 and M85 fuel, which is known as the FFV or the flexible fuel vehicles. That means 15% methanol they add in the in the uh, in the petrol or diesel, and similarly 85% also they can add in the fuel, motor fuel. But at the same time, the government of India has also mandated that around 5% ethanol should be blended with petrol, and target is that by 2025 it should be 20%. But the issue is that this because so the ethanol, we have to make the ethanol. Now ethanol is used for a lot of other things, and how they are produced. So there are a lot of issues are there. So blended petrol is hardly available in 13 states, and average blend is around 2% because of the non-availability of the ethanol. Okay, so also the price control to improve the availability and all those things are also there. So I'm not going into those detail. Now, so one of the future technologies for sustained development or the sustainable development is the emission to liquid. That means the carbon dioxide, if we can make some fuel, it may be liquid or it may be the solid or gas, but here I've just written emission to liquid. Okay, so I will talk about one technology which is electrochemical technology, where we can use the carbon dioxide and the water to make the various products, various chemicals. So these synthesized chemicals can further be used as a fuel and feed stock to various products. Okay, and also, if it is a methane we can use as a CNG. Okay, fuel for the CNG vehicle, and we can also make other fuels. So because this reaction, the reaction now, if you look at, so what is the concept? Concept is simple. The concept is the electrochemical reduction of carbon dioxide into the fuel. So the carbon dioxide that we are capturing from the point sources, these are the point sources and these are the distributed sources. That means from the environment, if we are able to take out the CO2, or from the fuel gas, we are able to take out the carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide we can push into the electrochemical reactor, and we can also, if we push the water, and because this reaction of the CO2 and the reaction of the water is non-feasible reaction. Okay, so you have to provide energy in order to get the reaction. Okay, so what we can do, we can use the renewable energy, for example, the wind or the solar, and that energy, if we utilize to convert this CO2 and water into the fuel or the chemical feedstock, then what we are doing, we are primarily reducing the carbon dioxide or utilizing the carbon dioxide, making the fuel chemical feedstock, and at the same time, because once this fuels or the chemical feedstock is ready, that means what we have done, we have taken this energy, which is the renewable energy, and we have converted into the chemical bonds. Okay, so the renewable energy storage is also there, but it looks very fascinating, but it has a lot of challenges, because first thing is that the technology is not mature. Okay, at the proof of concept, it is done. People are working on a lot of to solve a lot of issues, this technology is slowly taking momentum. In fact, it has taken a good momentum. In fact, there is a special journal from last, I think, 8 to 10 years before it was launched, CO2 utilization, Journal of CO2 Utilization, which is having impact factor of 5. So you can understand how many people are reading and using those research papers. So that shows that the R&D efforts are going on, and maybe soon we will have this technology in the industry level. So the basic principle, if you look at, so basic principle is very simple. So what happens? The water breaks anodic chamber, and it provides the electron and the proton. This electron and proton react with the carbon dioxide in the cathodic chamber and provides, say for example, methane in this case. Here in this case you can see it is methanol, and you can, the overall reaction is E naught is minus 1.06. This is standard potential, minus 1.21 volt. So that means we have to provide this energy. It shows that. Though these are the two reactions, but the main important thing is that the H plus that we are generating in most of the cases, or in almost all the cases, a significant part of this H plus recombine with the electron and give the hydrogen gas. So kind of electrolysis of water. So before it forms the hydrogen, we have to utilize it. That is the main challenge, and people are working, and we are also working a lot. So this particular slide shows the reaction. The CO2 is coming from here, the water is coming from here, it is forming H plus, and the electron is going from this circuit and reacting over here along with the CO2, so that we can get the desired product, and the unreacted CO2 comes out from here. So why a lot of energy is required for CO2 conversion? The reason is that CO2 is a straight molecule. Okay, O double bond C double bond O. Okay, C both the side 180-degree double bond O. Okay, so in order to make it active, we have to provide the energy so that we can bend the molecule. Once we can bend the molecule, then it will go for the reaction, or we have to ionize the carbon dioxide into ions by bending or by providing the electrons, so that it can easily take part in the reaction. We have published. So if you see those who are having the chemical engineering background, they can understand. Or the slide where I have shown the CO2, we are after in the power plant, the CO2 is coming out. That means we are absorbing this carbon dioxide in a particular liquid, and then we are regenerating CO2 from there. Okay, so we have taken the concept from there. If we can increase the solubility of carbon dioxide near the interface surface, then we can increase the mass transfer to the reaction site, and we can get the desired product depending upon the catalyst. So we have proposed the model that we have made a newer membrane, which is the polyethylene imine based membrane in the KOH environment. So that mechanism we have given, and it was published in PCCP, which is a very good journal. And there we have discussed how that particular membrane or the electrolyte affects the selectivity as well as the yield. So the performance of the developed electrolyte for ERC, we can see over here. We can get the C2H6, CH4, and in certain cases you can see methanol also. So those products were, but Faraday efficiency is in these C2 product and other product maybe 10-15%. But in certain product that those result I am not showing, we are getting result up to the 60% of the Faraday efficiency. So this is just a glimpse of the CO2, one of the technologies, electrochemical technologies that we have seen. Now again, coming back to those motor vehicles, we have seen that the global motorization level is increasing. Okay, that means the urban motor vehicle traffic will also increase, and this so the disruptive rapid increase in the urban traffic, it is posing the serious sustainability issues. Okay, and the main concerns are, what are those main concerns? Number one, it is the air quality. Number two, need to comply with the greenhouse gas emission targets. Okay, so we cannot say, okay, no, we can sustain, or we don't bother if the air quality, because we are in the IPPC also. Okay, so there we are, the government of India, or all the governments, they have given some targets. Okay, we will achieve this target for the greenhouse gas emission. So we have to comply that. Okay, at the same time, we are excessively dependent on the fossil fuels. Okay, So that dependency we should also reduce slowly. Now, there are two strategies. One is the short-term strategy. That means whatever IC engines we have, okay, we have to increase the efficiency of that so that we can, for per kilometer distance coverage, we require little bit less fuel, okay, and at the same time waste is harvesting, okay, whatever heat we are wasting, that somehow we have to harvest it or utilize it, and at the same time hybrid power trains are there, okay. So however, these are not sufficient. So these are the short term strategies. These are not efficient. We have to come up with the newer technologies. So long term technology, if you see, if I focus on the vehicles only. So the main alternative to the traditional internal combustion engines are the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle or the full hybrid or the full electric vehicle, which is known as either electric vehicle or battery electric vehicle, is the same thing. Okay, so PHEV, which is the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, is nothing but you have a plug inside in on board. Okay, apart from that hybrid engine. Okay, and EV allow reduction in the global fossil fuel consumption. Also, it is the key technology for the future smart grid also. So just quickly, if I see the classification of the electric vehicle, I can see that the type of vehicles that we have, the traditional vehicle use the gasoline or the diesel, which is the energy source, and the propulsion is with the help of the combustion engine, right? If we are talking about the hybrid vehicle, hybrid means we have the two technology, okay, and which is the combustion engine. Propulsion will be from the combustion engine, and it has the combustion engine as well as the electric motor also, okay. So I'm not going into the detail of this hybrid electric vehicles. Ultimately, what I'm trying to focus on the battery electric vehicle and the fuel cell electric vehicle. Okay, and in future maybe solar electric vehicle also. The solar panels may be so effective that you can just put it on the rooftop, and it will provide the enough energy so that you can charge the battery, or you can directly utilize it. Okay, so the out of the electric vehicles that I have shown over here, we can look at these two things. One is the battery electric vehicle. Okay, if I am saying the EV means the 100% electric vehicle. It has only the electric motor for the propulsion system. And another is the fuel cell electric vehicle, which is the FCEV. It uses the hydrogen gas as the energy source, and it is also the propulsion is based on the electric motor. So battery electric vehicle and fuel cell electric vehicle, these are the two electric vehicles right now, which are solely run by the powertrain is electric powertrain is there, right? So let us see the fuel cell in demonstration and the bottlenecks. I'll talk about the battery vehicle also quickly in a short while. So fuel cell in demonstration and bottlenecks, if we see we are talking about the fuel cell from last 30 years in India at least, from 1990s, or in fact before that, we are talking about the fuel cell. Some initial research was there at that time. Then a lot of people are working on the fuel cell, but still, the fuel cell is not in the market. Okay, nobody owns the fuel cell, at least in India. Okay, they are in the demonstration stages. Okay, or even worldwide also, these are not commercialized. They are in the demonstration stage. So this is one of the electric vehicle, Honda FCV. Okay, this is the Ballard fuel cell based vehicle, the bus. So the earlier presentation, which was given by Dr. Kiran Nair, he has nicely presented the different kind of fuel cells, then what are the pros and cons, and what is the how to get the hydrogen, all those things, the ecosystem little bit he has discussed. So that has given a well foundation so that I can discuss all those things. He has also discussed that the maximum theoretical voltage from a fuel cell, from a single cell, we can get is 1.23 volt, right? But it is in the standard condition, and if it is 100% efficient, but no system is 100% efficient. So irreversibilities are there or the losses are there. So once the losses are there, if you draw the current from the fuel cell, the voltage drops down. Okay, the IV characteristic he must have shown. So the operating voltage of a single cell is typically 0.6 to 0.7 volt, right? Okay, so 0.6 and 0.7 volt is not enough to run any electric motor, right? So what we have to do, we have to increase the voltage of the cell. How to increase the voltage of the cell? We have to connect the cells
Is
in
it okay
series.
now?
Hello. So operating voltage of a single cell is 0.6 to 0.7 volt, right? And we have to increase the voltage to say 48 volt or so. Then we have to add number of cells in order to achieve the voltage from that stack. If we add lot of cells, we get the stack. Okay, and that stack can give us the required voltage. So we must add lot of cells to get the useful voltage. And in order to utilize the fuel cell, the only fuel cell stack is not sufficient. Okay, there are a lot of other peripherals are required. So fuel cell stack and whatever other peripherals are required, that comes into the system. So if we if we combine everything, for example, the fuel cell stack and the hydrogen cylinder and the compressor and the power converters, okay, inverters, whatever is required in order to effectively utilize the fuel cell, all those system, if I include in the along with the stack, so this full is system known as the PEMFC system, or we can say fuel cell system. Otherwise we simply say the fuel cell stack. So now we can have the understanding of what is fuel cell stack and what is the fuel cell system. So fuel cell system cost, if you look at from 2006 onward, it is decreasing very fast, and the target is to reach or to get the ultimate cost around $30 per kilowatt net. Okay, so 30 kilowatt net power is required. It is, this calculation is based on the 80 kilowatt net PMFC system, and based on the projection that yearly you are making 5 lakh systems. Okay, based on that, calculations have been done, and it is expected and it is desired to have the cost in the range of $30 per kilowatt net from that system. Now, because we are talking about, because the single cell does not give the meaningful voltage, so we have to add lot of cells in series. So that integration of all the cells in series is a very tricky job, and that is one of the important part also. So the how we connect the two cells in series, we don't simply take the wire and connect. We have to connect phase to phase, so that there should be very less electrical path length to have the reduced voltage loss from the system. So that kind of plate which helps to get this, at the same time it helps to provide or supply the oxygen and hydrogen gas also. Okay, so if you see the first part here, okay, so in one part there are channels are there. Okay, in these channels you can see the two crisscross channels are there. One side it is longitudinal, and other side it is other way. Okay, so these channels are used to supply the hydrogen and oxygen gas through that bipolar plate. So this bipolar plate is very important. It conducts the electron from the one cell to another cell with the very thin or very low path, which may be 1 or 2 mm only. Okay, otherwise there will be lot of losses. So those bipolar plates are one of the important parts. You can see these are the bipolar plates. Once we have this bipolar plate, and also it gives the stability to the system. So if I just talk about the bipolar plate, it provides the good mechanical strength, high electrical conductivity in both in plane as well as the through plane. Though it is written both in plane and through plane are required, but the through plane is more important, because the electron from the one phase to other phase should go through that plane. Okay, so This is one of the important part. Then the high thermal conductivity is also required, because those the if you see here, this part is open to the air, okay, or we are providing some coolant if required, so that we can take out the heat generation from the system because of the uh, irreversibilities. Then the low hydrogen gas permeability should have the very low gas permeability, so that the gas that we are using on one side should not permeate to the other cell. Because if you see here again, if I show, see, one side is oxygen, okay, so in between, if you take any of the plates, see this plate, so one side is oxygen, other side is hydrogen. So the hydrogen should not permeate from the anodic compartment to the cathodic compartment. Otherwise, what will happen? This oxygen, or sorry, this hydrogen which is permeating from the anodic part to the cathodic part of the other cell. So it will react. The hydrogen and oxygen will react because the platinum is available over there. Okay, once the platinum is available for the reaction, hydrogen and oxygen, as soon as it will come, it will immediately react. Once it will react, it will provide a lot of energy at that point. Okay, and your membrane will burn, right? So once it will burn, now the holes are generated. Now within the cell, hydrogen and oxygen will again combine, and ultimately your system will burn out. Your membrane will burn out, and system will not work. Okay, so this is the importance of the bipolar plate. At the same time, it should have excellent corrosion resistance and the low interfacial contact resistance. So various metals have been thought of. For example, pure graphite. Then the metal can also be used. Carbon polymer can also be used. So this is the bipolar plate. Apart from that, because this, as Dr. Kiran discussed, it is this fuel cell require the platinum catalyst. Okay, the platinum is very costly, so we have to minimize the catalyst in such a way that the cost can be reduced. Okay, for that, and at the same time, so what we do, we take the metal, very fine nanoparticles of the platinum, and we deposit over the carbon black support, so that we can effectively utilize the इसको close कर दो, effectively utilize the platinum. Okay, so this carbon black support or the support metal is very important. Right now the carbon black support is being used, and this support though it has the platinum over there, but what happens in due course of time, there is agglomeration of those particles, you can see, and they come out or they detach from the support. So the effective attachment of this metal or the platinum metal, if it is catalyst there, it is very important. So catalyst support plays a very strong role. So for example, electrocatalyst support, it should have very high specific surface area, it should have high electrical conductivity, excellent electrochemical stability, as well as it should have the good interaction between the metal nanoparticles and the support material. Otherwise, it will come out from the support and it will agglomerate, and it will reduce the efficiency of the system. Okay, so we worked on the carbon polymer composite bipolar plate, and we have compared, and we have published a lot of papers also, which has got good traction. And so Sigraset, we are just comparing the Sigraset PPG86 bipolar plate with the plate that we have made in our Sustainable Environment Research Lab, SERL. So the electrical conductivity desired is more than 100 Siemens per centimeter. Okay, so now you see the plate which is available in the market, they are very good. The in-plane conductivity is very good, but the through-plane conductivity is not up to the mark. So we have made this bipolar plate where the through-plane conductivity is more than 100, which is desired, and in-plane conductivity definitely it is sacrificed. But anyway, both should be more than 100. So therefore, we could get this result. And if I compare with the other commercial bipolar plates, for example, from the GE, Plug Power, DuPont, and the Sigraset, anyway we have shown, and this is the IIT one. So we have got a good shore hardness, good flexural resistance, good in plane and the through plane electrical conductivity. We have tested one or two result. I'll just show you. So the two cell result you can see over here, where we have used a 0.2 mg per centimeter mg platinum per centimeter square. Okay, and temperature is also moderate, not very high temperature. We have used only 50 degrees centigrade. So you can see with the two cells we are getting the maximum power is roughly 1 watt per centimeter square. So that means if you have 100 centimeter square of the cell, single cell, then you will get roughly 90 to 100 watt, okay, by single cell. Okay, if you add number of cells, say 50 cells, a cell stack, then accordingly the calculation will change. We have also, so okay, so this fuel cell we have seen. We will also talk about the battery based electric vehicles. Okay, this is ultimately will be used for the electric vehicle, stationary as well as the mobile application also. Now in order to cover the various technologies or the electrochemical technologies, let us see the another technology. Yeah, because these are the discussions going on in day-to-day basis in the newspaper, in the peer groups. So therefore, I thought I'll just talk about these technologies in a very simple way, so that we can have a feel. Okay, so now we will talk about the battery-based electric vehicles. Okay, so in order to make it more interesting, what I have done, I have used the product catalog of some of the electric vehicle which is available in India. And so if you see the make and model, I have written in the first column. So Hyundai's Kona Electric, Tata Tigor electric vehicle, and MG Hector's ZS EV, and the Mahindra's E20 plus, okay, or P2 sometimes we say. So here you can see the energy capacity of these vehicles are given. Okay, so you see energy capacity is given in terms of the kilowatt hour. That means you are talking about the energy. Now you just think we have a car, okay, which is run by the IC engine. So where is the energy stored? Energy is stored in the petrol, okay, or in the gasoline. So once this gasoline, suppose we have a 50 liter tank, we have kept the tank full 50 liter, then we can go, maybe if it is 10 kilometer per liter, then we can go for 500 kilometer. Okay, so that is the energy capacity. For that you can go 100 kilometer. Here, if you have this much energy, and this energy is stored in the battery, so around 40 kilowatt hour energy if you have in the battery, you can go around 450 kilometer. This is again at standard conditions. See, even if we talk about any IC engines based vehicle, if we see their product catalog, it is written that okay, 17 kilometer or 15 kilometer per liter at standard conditions. But in reality, it may be 2/3 of that, or that depends on what is the driving cycle. Okay, how you are driving the vehicle. So here you see 40 kilowatt hour give roughly 400 plus kilometer, and the cost is around 24 lakh rupees, in which is the ex Delhi price, ex showroom Delhi price. Okay. Now Tata Tigor, you see, from 40 kilowatt hour to roughly 20 kilowatt hour, half. Okay, less than around half. Okay. So now the energy, which that means the number of batteries that this Hyundai's have, this Tata Tigor may be having roughly half. Okay, so if the energy capacity is half, you can see the range is also roughly half, and the price is roughly reduced to half or so. Okay, that okay. So you can see the price is directly related to the battery capacity, how much energy it is having. Okay. Now if you look at this 15 kilowatt or Mahindra Z2 or MG Hector's 44, roughly 45, you can see there are a lot of other factors, but I am simply talking about so that we can have a fair feel of these terms. So 15 kilowatt hour, roughly 140 kilometers. So even in standard condition, 1 kilowatt hour means 1 unit of electricity will give you 10 kilometer run. Okay, you can go for 10 kilometer, and the price is, again you can see, it is accordingly. If it is 400, it is 24 lakh. It is 140 40 kilometers can go with the 15 kilowatt. It is 6 lakh rupees. Okay, so you can understand how the energy is related to the range and the price, which is directly related to the how much energy we are having, or what is the size of the battery pack in the electric vehicle. Now comes the, if we have the electric vehicle and if we have the battery in it, then the question comes how to charge, how long it will take to charge. So for that understanding, to get that understanding, you see the third column, charging time. So if you use the AC wall for this vehicle, it will typically take around 6 hours. If you go for the DC fast, 0 to 80%, it can charge around in 1 hour, but power requirement will be 50 kilowatt. So this is important. If you want to charge, see, I'm not considering other factors. Again, this disclaimer, I'm not considering other constant of the batteries and other things. But if I see, if I have to charge the vehicle up to 80%, I need 50 kilowatt hour. Sorry, 50 kilowatt power from the mains. Now 50 kilowatt power in a house we don't have. We only have 5, 6, 7 kilowatt electric meter in our house. So we cannot charge the vehicle very fast with the chargers or with our home electric supply. Okay, so AC wall, if I am talking, that means we can use it from our house. Okay. So you can see the other, now this is 40 kilowatt hour, it takes around 6 hours. For DC charge, it is 1 hour. Similarly, if you look at the Tata Tigor 21, it also take around 12 hours. So that depends on how you are charging. There are a lot of things. But in a typical case, you can see they are in terms of the few hours. Okay, 6, 7 hours or 8 hours in that range. And if you are talking about the fast charging, see, all this is again 50 kilowatt you require, but in 50 minutes you can charge up to 80%. Again, this is up to 80% only. Okay, so that means you can see here, very simple, if you want to fast charge an electric vehicle, you need lot of power. Okay, so other calculations I am not showing in the interest of time and in the interest of varied background of the people attending this talk. So it is just a glimpse. Okay, now the question comes, if we want to use fast charging. Okay, suppose we have a charging station where we can charge, say, 10 vehicle at a time. So even if we are charging at this rate, means 1 hour, in 1 hour we want to charge the vehicle. So if the 10 vehicles are there, you can see it will be the 500 kilowatt power should be required. Okay, so power requirement is a 500. So simple arithmetic I am using. I'm not going into details. Simply you can understand 500 kilowatt is required. Now you see this charging station, how they are getting the energy so that we can charge this battery. They are connected to the grid. Okay, so this charging station at a time it is drawing around 500 kilowatt of the power. Maybe after 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer we have another charging station where again at a time 10 or 15 charging vehicles are there. They are again drawing a lot of power. Okay, so in that way, if you see, there is a lot of load onto the grid. And how this grid is supplying power? This grid is supplying power with the help of the fossil fuel based power plants, mostly, right? So that means we are not, it is not prudent to say that if we have the electric vehicle and if we are charging the vehicle, but ultimately that energy is coming from the fossil fuel, then that doesn't make much sense. Okay, but right now we have to go in that way. But what is the ultimate solution? Ultimate solution is there, that you have to store the energy somewhere. Okay, you have to store the energy. Suppose in the night time the grid is able to supply the power because much load is not there, you can store that energy. If the good sun rays are there, you can use the solar panel and store the energy. If the wind is there, you can store that energy. That means energy storage is very important. Once you can store the energy, that energy you can utilize during the once the demand is there. Okay. So there are electrochemical devices. These are the electrochemical devices which can store a lot of energy. So there are lot of energy storage devices are there, but my discussion will be primarily on the electrochemical devices. So we can use the lead acid battery, lithium-ion battery, redox batteries we can use. But there are a lot of issues with the lead acid battery and lithium-ion battery with respect to cost and other things. And in fact, all the technologies have that. But this is not the small storage. We have to keep it in mind that the energy that we are trying to store, this is huge energy. Okay, it is not for the one electric vehicle or two electric vehicle, or not for our laptop or this mobile phone. So this lithium-ion battery is very good for the for the uh, for the small devices, but if it is very large storage, then they may not serve the purpose. It would be very costly. You can see the price I have shown in an electric vehicle. That price is in the range of you must have seen that price I have shown. If it is the price is double, if the energy content that we are storing there is double. Okay, and that means half of the price of the, or 40, roughly 40% or so, or 40 to 50% cost is for those battery only. Okay, rest of the things are standard, right? Okay, except the drivetrain. So lot of components are, now you see electric vehicle have lesser component because the electric drive, the powertrain that we use, this is electrically driven. It needs less component as compared to the IC engine based one. So we have to find out a technology which can store large amount of energy. So here I'll talk about the redox flow battery because these are the good option. So the question is, what is this redox flow battery? So this redox flow battery, if you see this diagram, here we have this this is the battery stack. This battery, in fact, before going, I'll just connect it with the known things, so that you can understand. See, the vehicle that we are using, the traditional vehicle. We have the IC engine. One engine is there. Okay, that engine is giving the power, right? And energy is also there. Where the energy is stored? Energy is stored in the petrol tank or in the form of petrol, right? So energy is somewhere, energy storage is somewhere, and the conversion of that energy into the power somewhere else, which is the IC engine, right? So if I tell you, you want to increase the you want to go for longer distance, means you want more energy in your vehicle. What will you do? You will refill it. Or suppose initially it is 10 liter petrol is there in your vehicle, you can go for 100 kilometer. You want, no, I have to go for 200 kilometer. That means I need a double of the energy. So what I'll do, I'll go to the petrol pump, I'll take the 20 liter 10 liter, I'll add up. So now it is 20 liter petrol. I can go easily to 100 kilometer. If I want to further increase the energy content in my vehicle, what I'll do, I'll increase it to 40 liter, say 50 liter. Okay. So that means if I increase the tank volume or content in the tank, my energy is increasing. Okay, but at the same time, the power that can deliver the IC engine that can deliver the power, it is fixed. Okay, the maximum, this limit, this power, this characteristic is fixed. Okay, so it can maximum produce that much power which is for which it is designed, right? So so that the same thing we can see here in the flow battery also, as the name is indicating, it is the redox flow batteries. Redox means reduction, oxidation. Flow means something is flowing in the vehicle, which is the electrolyte. So you see, this is the stack where the reaction happens, and you can correlate with the engine, IC engine that you have. And these are the two tanks which store the electrical energy. So there are two tanks. One is the anolyte or the negative electrolyte tank. Another is the positive electrolyte tank. So these electrolyte we pump into the battery so that we can generate the electrical energy. Okay, that energy we can use it for various purpose. It may be the EV charging station. We can make a EV charging station. We can feed it to the grid once grid is in more demand, and we can push the energy there. We can also use for the rural electrification and so on. And how to charge it? That charging is with the help of the solar energy, wind energy, or maybe it can also be charged with the grid energy, from the grid also. Maybe in the night time the load is less, but we have to run our power plant at the optimum efficiency. Then we can use it whether it is required or not. So the whatever excess energy is there, that can be stored in these reactants. So that means the key feature of this battery is that the decoupled power and energy. The power and energy is decoupled. They are not dependent upon each other the same way as your IC engine based system. Okay. Deep discharge and charge is possible in this case. Okay? It has that capability. And it is also, the life is more than 20 years. Okay, but the life of this electrolyte is maybe 40-50 year, or it has infinite life, but it has the tangible components. So definitely those mechanical parts and all that have some life. So therefore it is predicted that it can go easily up to 20 years. Crossover, because both the electrolytes, in this case here I am talking about the vanadium redox flow battery, the reactions you can see. So both sides of vanadium is there, different oxidation stage. If there is any crossover, one in the cell there is some leakage, it goes from one positive to the negative, it won't hamper much, and that can be repaired. So we have patented some of the technologies in that respect that I will show. So here vanadium, these reactions, I am not going into those detail. And because we have discussed that it is having the decoupled energy and the power. So that means if this is the flow battery system. So if I want to increase the power from the system, then we can increase the stack size. If we want more energy, we don't touch this power part, which is the stack. We can increase the tank size. Okay, but in the conventional battery you can't do that. In the conventional battery, if you have to, whether you are you have to increase the energy or power, they are not decoupled. You have to increase both. Okay. Now we have done a lot of work from last 6-7 years. We are working ultimately whatever reaction, these reactions are happening at the flow at the electrode. So the efficient electrodes are very important. So we have made some electrode which are very good and showing the power in few times more than the conventional one. So this we have filed the patent also. Okay. Then the performance you can see over here, the performance which is in terms of the exchange current density and the reaction kinetics or the rate of the reaction. This is shown over here. KTGF is the one which we have developed. So the energy efficiency is very high. Energy efficiency, this if you see the energy efficiency, overall energy efficiency, if you see, it is more than 85%. Okay. And this is the Coulombic efficiency, voltage efficiency, but the overall energy efficiency is around 85 plus. Okay, at 100 milliamps per centimeter square, which is a huge current for this particular system. We are also working on various engineering approaches for the capacity protection. How much electrolyte we should have so that we can run our system. So we have gone for the various calculations, and we have got some dimensionless numbers. This is the TCU, NBU, Wagoner number, reciprocal of Damkohler number. So these two numbers are already in the electrochemical space, but these two new dimensionless numbers we have proposed, and this is accepted by the Chemical Engineering Journal, which is a very high impact factor journal and very renowned journal. So they have accepted this. So now there are TCU and NVU is there. Okay. So there is a limits are also there, permissible limit for this equation, so that we can use it, and we can find the TD. TD is the time of discharge, for how long we can discharge the battery. Okay, we are also understanding the self-discharge phenomena. Okay, so this some mathematical equations are there. So those equations we have used from our own and also from the literature help we have taken, and we are working on that to understand the self-discharge phenomena. We are also, so just in quick way, I am just telling these points. So we are also trying to understand the shunt current evaluation using the equivalent circuit modeling. And also we are working on the separator development, because the separator is one of the important component of this flow battery, which is basically limiting the wider uses of the flow battery. Then we are also working on the development of the battery management system. So in my group, we have the electrical engineer, we have the mechanical engineer, we have the electronics and telecommunication, instrumentation engineer. Then, of course, the chemical, mechanical, physicists and chemists are also there. So it's a team of around 15 to 20 people, those who are working on different part of this battery, and there are other technologies. Okay, so with that, I'll just tell you a few other things. So recently, in last 2 years, we have filed these 6 patents on this flow battery only. Okay, so the 2 are international also, and 4 are national, and we have developed the prototype. Okay, so ultimately, whatever we are doing, if you are doing in the lab, and if it is only in the lab, it doesn't make any sense. Ultimately, it has to come to the market. Okay, at least market, or it has come to at least some level, so that from there the industry can pick up that technology, and they can utilize it for the larger benefit of the society. So these are the, then if I show you the 6-volt battery and the 12-volt battery stack. So this is the smaller stack, which is around 6-volt battery stack. Then we have made the VRFB's demonstration rig. Our director, deputy director, heads and all, they have inaugurated that VRFB demonstration test rig, and this is a performance of one of the batteries. Now after that we have made a product also. Okay, so this is a product. Okay, one of the products for basically those who are visiting IIT Delhi. So so they have to charge their mobile phone, they have to charge their laptops and all. Okay, so what we have done, we have made a VRFB based charging station. So that charging station we have installed in the wind tunnel, which is the main area of IIT Delhi. This is the main building. Just below that, it is, we said, wind tunnel. So there we have installed this battery system. Okay. So this battery system is installed over there. Now our director is charging his mobile. So this is the same thing. The same has been tweeted and given the Facebook message by our Honorable Minister Dr. Ramesh Pokhariyal Nishank also. So with that, I would like to acknowledge the organizer for giving me the opportunity to interact with you, all of you. So I believe I have not bored you. So I generally stop my talk with something. So today what I'll do, I'll tell you a small story. Okay. So then I will go to the thanks slide. So this is related to the sustainability. Okay. So so that we can have a broader perspective of the sustainability. We are talking about the sustainability. I have started from the sustainability. We have discussed various things about our various technologies, CO2 conversion technology, then fuel cell, then the battery and all, then the flow battery. So just in short, I will talk about a story. which is a very good story to understand the sustainability and the reuse, how to reuse the things. So the story starts like that. One day, as the Gautam Buddha sat in a deep thought, okay, he was approached by one of his disciples. Okay, so Buddha was sitting, and one of the disciples approached him. So disciple simply said, "Oh teacher, you are so concerned about the rest of the world. Why don't you also look into the welfare of and need of our own disciples?" The Buddha was surprised. What happened? Please tell me, how can I help you? So the disciple told Master, my attire is worn out beyond the limits of decency. Could I get a new one, please? The Buddha looked at him closely and found that that the robe he was wearing indeed appeared to be in a bad condition and needing the replacement. So he asked the storekeeper to give the disciple a new robe. So that robe he has taken, and thanks to the Buddha, and Buddha also went into his retiring room. So after some time, Buddha thought, okay, let us visit the disciple, and so he visited disciple, and whether there was anything else. So told, thank you, master. The new robe is indeed very comfortable. I need nothing more. Buddha said, having got a new one, what did you do with your old robe? Disciple told, I have begun using it as my bedspread. Okay. Then Buddha told, oh, I hope then that you have disposed of your old bed. Disciple told, no, no, master. I am just using my old bed sheets as my window curtains. Buddha told again, and what about your old curtains? Disciple told, that is being used to handle hot utensil in the kitchen. Buddha again told, oh, I see. Could you please tell me what did you do with the old clothes that were already using in kitchen? Disciple told, those were being used to mop the floor. Buddha was very good. Then what about the old rug or that mopper that you were using? What happened to that? Disciple told master, since the rug was already tattered, we could not find any better use but as a source of wicks for the oil lamp. Means in the oil lamp we use the wick. Right? So that he has cut that floor mop and use it as a whip for the old lamp, which is right now lighting up my study. The Buddha smiled in contentment and walked out of the disciples' room. So, with that story, I would like to thank everybody, and I would like to summarize that: reduce CO2 from industrial. I have discussed the three things: reduction of CO2 from industrial emission, storage of renewable energy. Ultimately, we have to produce the clean liquid fuels. So this was all about. So if there is any question, you can ask.
So, any questions from the audience? Any questions?
Am I audible, please?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Please.
I'm Amit Kumar Mittal. I'm working with the Military Engineer Services. First
Yes.
of all, sir, let me congratulate you on what note you have ended this session. This was really a lesson, and in I think modern word, it is called circular economy.
Right.
Am I right, sir?
Right. Right.
I
Well
think
said.
we are going back to the Stone Age
Correct.
to have sustainability.
Yes, we have to again learn from the previous Stone Age, so that
Correct.
at the same time the oh, is there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
you
So
please continue.
I just wanted to congratulate you on this note that this was a wonderful session. I have no I have no question because this was so clear. This session was so clear. So there is no doubt. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. So in fact, I'll just at this point I'll tell that so we are having one online program on the advanced e-vehicle technology. where people from the electronic background and we from the chemical engineering background, we are having the 3-month program. So the detail you can get from the continuing education program website. So from September to December, that program will go. If anybody is interested, they can see those details and they can enroll in the course. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Rajbala. Rajbala, you have a question? Rajbala. Yeah, please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Hello.
Yes, good morning. I can hear. Please.
Sir, my question is that you have given the presentation about what proton membrane fuel cell. Sir, I have doubt. I have just seen the energy density of solid oxide fuel cell, and that energy density varies from 10 to the power 3 to 10 to the power 9. Sir, can we use solid oxide fuel cell for EV? Sir, mainly my question is that what is the
Understood. I
future?
understood. I understood. Thank you for this question. So the more details, see, I have seen the program schedule. There are many talks on the solid oxide fuel cell. But anyway, because I'll discuss about the EV part of the question. So the solid oxide fuel cell, if you look at, they run, they need a particular temperature to operate. Okay, in order to operate, we need a particular temperature. So that temperature is in the range of 600 degrees centigrade at least. So now there are a lot of research from 550 to 600, 700 degrees centigrade or 800 up to 1000 degree. Okay. So the operating temperature of the solid oxide fuel cell is very high. Okay. So that may not be very good proposition or thinking so that we can use it in the electric vehicle. So they are very good for the stationary application, but for the electric vehicle, the PEM fuel cell is more than enough as of now. But people are working on the direct methanol fuel cell or ethanol fuel cell also, so that they can have they should not get the problem of the hydrogen storage. So EV, as per my understanding, SOFC may not be a good idea. Am I clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Because the top operating temperature is very high. Okay. Yeah.
So still any questions? Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for providing us a valuable talk on sustainable energy. Thanks a lot, sir, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was indeed a great pleasure to interact with the participants and deliver the talk what we are doing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. So the next session will begin from 1:30. So Professor Dr. K. Ramya from Center for Fuel Cell Technology head. So she is going to deliver a talk on fuel cell technologies. So kindly join around 1:30 for the meeting. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Piyush Kumar, do you have any query?
Yes, sir. Actually, I have a query with sir. He is present?
Oh, Anil Kumar, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anil Verma. Okay. He just now left. I have asked several times. You might have raised there, otherwise you might have messaged.
Yeah, sir. I have raised my hand most of time, but I'm unable to get continue because you have already muted at your side now.
Okay. Yeah, you can.
Well, then in any other session, if we can chat, no problem.
I'm sorry.
If it is possible, then I will contact directly. No problem, sir.
Yes. You can contact him. You have his mail ID, so you can contact him. He will definitely respond. He's a good person.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, I will tell his mail ID. If you want, you can raise your mail.
Yeah.
avarma@gmail.com.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, we'll end up the session. Participants requested to join at 1:30 p.m.